Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild. Sorry, I'm having to restart our broadcast here, but it looks like we were having issues on YouTube. So please, Ricky or somebody out there, let me know how this looks on YouTube as well as Facebook. We want to triple check everything before I get too far into the animal encounter. If you've never met me before, my name is Amanda. This is Once in a Wild. We are a mobile zoo based in San Antonio, Texas, and the surrounding cities. And we also offer virtual experiences as well. Please check out all of our experiences at onceinaWilds.com. You can also donate to Venmo and Cash App. Okay, so it looks like, unfortunately, we're having an issue on YouTube, but I don't think it's us. So we might just re-upload this later. I'm so sorry, you guys. It doesn't seem like it's our fault. It seems like it's a YouTube issue or maybe something they're going through. So we will probably upload this to YouTube later like we used to do in the old days. But we'll stay on Facebook. I guess, you know, we did our best. But hello, Facebook people. If you're out there in Facebook land, thank you for joining us today. And we'd love to see your comments and questions and anything you would like to tell us over on Facebook. Please join in and interact with me. That makes me always feel really good. Welcome to the Once in a Wild show. We bring you a free live stream every single Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We did begin at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, but we had to restart. We were trying to restart YouTube. So we'll see how it goes. I guess we just are going to make the best of it. So without further ado, let's begin, you guys. Once again, we're sorry about that. We typically do broadcast on Facebook and YouTube, but apparently YouTube's having issues. But what can you do? Sometimes technology is not our friend. So welcome everybody watching. If you're out there on Facebook, please give me a comment, give me a question. Let me know everything is looking good. I don't think I have any viewers on Facebook right now, so please let me know if everything's going through. I do want to make sure I have some people watching before I begin the actual animal portion. We've had a very busy week, so if you do want to schedule your own virtual or in-person animal encounter, if you happen to be in the San Antonio, Texas area, that's where we can do in-person encounters, of course. Please let me know immediately as soon as you have a date in mind, because we are getting quite busy. It looks like I do have some people watching, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. So we've had several human guests here on the Once in a Wild live stream show, but this is going to be our first animal guest. And by animal guest, I mean an animal that doesn't actually belong to Once in a Wild. But I have met a wonderful person very, very recently, and her name is Sinitra Robinson, and she actually owns a company called Springing Scales. Check them out on Facebook, if you don't mind. Springing Scales, give them a follow, give her a follow. Not only is Sinitra an awesome author, she's a motivational speaker and a very wonderful person. She also rescues reptiles, and that is her passion in life. And she has brought me a really neat friend to borrow just for the live stream today. And I thought you guys would love to meet him. So I will be right back. I'm actually going to step aside, and it might take me a second because he's actually a very, very large animal. So we're going to meet him in just one moment. Oh my gosh, check this guy out. This is Zakara, and he is a blood python. Why do they call them the blood python? Well, a lot of them are actually blood red. He's more of an orange color, and they do vary in color depending on the individual. Blood pythons are found in Southeast Asia, places like Malaysia and Sumatra, same place that Sumatran tigers are from and things like that. And they are from the jungle of those areas in Asia. They are very, very tropical species. They enjoy a lot of rainfall and moisture to keep them nice and healthy. As you can see, they're quite a large snake, but they're not a very long snake. Blood pythons aren't just known for being red sometimes and orange and pretty colors like this. They're also known for being quite short and quite rotund, if you know what I mean, as he turns away. And I guess he's insulted by me calling him rotund, but that's just the way that these guys are. They are a python. Oh, he's so heavy. Ugh. And forgive me, I don't know how much he weighs because he's not my snake. But I would guess, oh my gosh, I would guess maybe Sinitra can chime in and let me know how much he weighs, because I don't really want to guess and be wrong. We'll weigh him later and get back to you guys. But Zakara is just gorgeous, isn't he? So they are known for being quite rotund, thick, if you will, big-bodied. huge, and they are pythons. So they have very strong muscles. They are constrictors, just like all python species are. And python species, like all snakes, are carnivores. So they're going to eat animals like rodents and birds, mostly, mostly in the natural environment where they're from. And I'm told he also eats rodents too in Sinitra's home. But isn't he gorgeous? He actually is a very, very sweet blood python. They're not always this sweet. But that just shows you that you can't really judge a book by its cover, right? Most snakes are very, very docile, to be honest with you. Snakes are actually my favorite animals to work with. They're very easy to work with most of the time. But a lot of blood pythons get a bad reputation for being a little bit snarky and bitey. But that's just because if you think about them as a wild animal, they live in the jungles of Southeast Asia, where there are very large predators and even humans that might hunt them and hurt them. So they are quite a defensive animal. And pythons also have what we call heat-sensing pits. And blood pythons do have heat-sensing pits. I don't know how well you can see them. Let me see if I can show you. He has some heat-sensing pits on his lips there. He also has nostrils too, just like all of us. But he has a couple of heat-sensing pits on either side of his top jaw there. And some pythons have more than that. He's got a few of them. But that can help him to sense heat. So they're actually quite a sensitive animal as well to like heat and body movement, or, you know, movement, body heat, I should say, and things like that. So a lot of times they will kind of strike first and ask questions later. They're not a venomous snake, of course. They're pythons, so they don't have any venom or poison. They're constrictors. But a bite from this animal might be kind of, you know, not a great day if you get bitten by them. But he's actually a sweetheart. He's been handled quite a bit. He's obviously got a great personality, etc. Did you know that snakes have good personalities and different personalities between different snakes? Isn't that neat? Let me know if you guys are seeing everything okay. I want to make sure our broadcast is going through. Zakara is a beautiful snake. He does have a forked tongue, just like every snake species. He's got a huge head. He's a huge snake. Oh my gosh, he's hard to hold up for the camera. But he has he has a big forked tongue. He has a big forked tongue, and he uses his forked tongue like all snake species, and that's for smelling. So snakes do have nostrils, and some of them have heat-sensing pits. Not every snake species has heat-sensing pits. Only the more sensitive ones do, like pythons. But he does have a forked tongue for smelling. They have nostrils, like I said, but he doesn't use his nostrils for smelling. He only uses them for breathing and things like that. Instead of doing the smelling the way we do, which is with our nostril or nose, they actually smell with their tongue instead. So like I said, and they're going to have a forked tongue. I don't know if I can show you guys all of his body at once without, you know, breaking my back. He does have a forked tongue like all snakes, and the forked tongue will help them smell in 2 different directions to be able to figure out what's going on around them. Snakes do have eyes. They don't have great vision, though. Their vision is pretty poor, but they use their sense of smell, and in this case, he's going to use his heat-sensing abilities as well to hunt instead of using his eyesight most of the time. But they still can see a little bit. Now, speaking of seeing, they don't have any eyelids, like all snakes. He does have a spectacle scale, which is a clear scale over his eye. So that protects his eye just fine without an eyelid. He doesn't have to blink at all. That's going to protect his eye from debris and things like that. This, by the way, is a very heavy-bodied snake, if you can't tell by my struggling. He's a heavy snake. He's also quite a thick-bodied snake. Oh, my goodness. And they don't do a lot of climbing. So, look at his pretty belly. He's so beautiful with all his spots and markings. I know this looks really awkward, but I'm just trying to hold him up so you guys can see. There we go. So this is going to strictly be a terrestrial species, meaning they don't really climb trees or anything like that. He's doing a pretty good job climbing me right now, though. But they're not going to be like a reticulated python, also found in Asia, by the way, or a Burmese python, too. Those guys can do a lot more climbing than this species can because they're just built to be on the ground. They're quite short for a big python, but they're just as heavy as some other pythons, and they do best on the ground. They're going to hang out on the ground, and they prefer a very rainy and wet and moisturized environment rather than a dry environment. In fact, these guys need to be soaked quite a bit to help them with shedding issues and things like that. Oh, goodness gracious. They are quite a large snake. As you can see, the largest snake we've ever had on our live stream program for sure. My mom says, very cool snake. That's Donna Winters. That's a very cool snake. Thank you, Mom. He is very cool. He's really, really fun to have here on the live stream. And he's never been on the live stream before, but I don't think it's going to be his last time. Now, he's also a rescue animal, so I don't believe Sinitra knows his age. In fact, I'm pretty sure she doesn't. But he is an adult-sized male blood python. And male blood pythons, like most python species, are smaller than female. So if you can imagine a snake bigger than this, that can lay anywhere from, I would say, 10 to 30 eggs in a clutch. These guys are egg layers, unlike boa constrictors that don't lay eggs. That's a big difference between pythons like this one and boa constrictors is the fact that pythons do lay eggs, and also pythons have those heat sensing pits. Most boa constrictors don't have heat sensing pits, and most pythons do. So they're a lot more sensitive than boa constrictors when they can sense their prey moving. And that tells you a lot about what they eat as well. They're going to sense heat of warm-blooded animals rather than eating cold-blooded animals. So some snakes eat other snakes. Some snakes eat eggs. Some snakes eat fish. Some snakes eat lizards and frogs. All those animals are cold-blooded, or they're just eggs. And some eggs are warm-blooded animals too. But my point is, these guys actually do go after... Hey. That was not my camera's timer. That was just the camera shutting off. That is interesting. One moment, you guys. One moment, you guys. So, not only are we having broadcast issues, we're having camera issues. Isn't that fun? So we're going to spend a little bit more time with Zakara for a little bit, and then he's going to have to say see you later. But I think he's just gorgeous. I would love to have him again on the program here. And I think he made a wonderful first debut for our first guest animal here on the show. We've had guest humans, like I said, but this is our first guest animal. If you're just joining us, my name is Amanda. This is Zakara, the blood python. He is a male blood python. Sinitra says he's about 7 years old. Sinitra is actually the person that owns Zakara. He's just hanging out with us just for today. That's pretty neat. Sinitra is a wonderful person, by the way. You should check out her company called Springing Scales. She did rescue this animal, and he's made a very, very good comeback. He looks absolutely beautiful. And Donna, of course, is tagging some of her friends and people that would love this program. Well, Zakara is going to have to say, see you later, and maybe he'll be back another time, but we are running a little bit late. So don't worry, we've got 2 more reptiles to meet you guys. We're meeting nothing but reptiles today. Remember, reptiles are snakes, turtles and tortoises, crocodilians, and lizards. So how would you guys like to meet some other reptiles? That would be fun. But take a gander one more time at this big, beautiful, amazing blood python. Again, they call them the blood python because oftentimes they might be red or orange in coloration. So blood red, blood python, right? I think he is just beautiful. Snakes get a very, very bad reputation, but they're actually excellent for the environment because they do eat a lot of rodents, just like this python does in the natural environment. And eating lots of rodents is very helpful because it helps to lower diseases in the natural environment. And we all know that we shouldn't have any, or we can't use any more diseases this year. So having more predators like snakes helps us to be less sick, if that makes sense. Yeah, maybe it will work next week. I don't know what's going on with YouTube right now, but we're going to do our very best to broadcast this, and then we'll upload it to YouTube later. So sorry for all the technical difficulties. Sometimes that happens, and there's something we can do about it. We just have to smile and keep going, right? Okay, Zakara, you did wonderful. You're a wonderful, wonderful snake, and we love you already, and we'll see you another time. So I'm going to go have our next animal come onto the program, okay? Be right back. And we're back. Sorry about all the technical difficulties again. We're doing our very best. Sometimes these things happen and we're just going to power through it, aren't we? We do love to bring you this broadcast every single Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Typically, we're on YouTube and Facebook, but I guess that's just not happening tonight. Hopefully it will. Maybe at the end it'll be there. Who knows? But if you guys have any questions or comments, please let me know over on Facebook. And I'll do my very best to get to your comments and questions. Did you like Zakara? Zakara will be back another time, but Sinitra had to get going. So I had to go ahead and give Zakara back to her. And we shall see him another time, I'm sure. But don't worry, we have some more animals to meet. Very disappointing when things don't go the way that you predicted, huh? But we're doing our best. Okay. How about a lizard friend? Would you guys like to meet a lizard? This is Roo. And Roo hasn't been on the program in a while, but I thought I would bring her today. She is a beautiful crested gecko. Crested geckos come from Australasia. So they're right off the coast of Australia. They are found on the islands of New Caledonia. There's one main island and also a teeny tiny island as well that you can find this type of gecko in the wild, is what I'm trying to say. And they are so very cool. The crested gecko gets its name from the little kind of crest on the ridge of their head there. Really neat looking. And they also are known as the eyelash gecko as well. This is the natural color that they are in the wild. Roo is a buckskin or naturally colored crested gecko. Pretty neat. Whoa, goodbye. Now, one thing that's really fun is there's several really neat facts about crested geckos, of course. But one thing that's really neat about them, in my opinion, is they actually were discovered in the 1860s. We'll just play it safe and say the 1860s. So in the 1860s, they were originally discovered in the islands of Australasia, right next door to Australia, where I talked about. And then, because of bad record keeping back then, but please forgive them, it was the 1860s. I'm sure everything was just by, quill writing and everything like that. So they didn't have like computers and they didn't have good records back then. And everything was kind of by word of mouth and things like that. So please forgive these people, these scientists that discovered the crested gecko originally. They thought that they went extinct because they were recorded to have been on one island near Australia, but they actually were on New Caledonia, like I just said, and that one other tiny island right next to New Caledonia. I can't remember what it's called. But they were thought to have been extinct because of bad records or poor record keeping, I guess. And then eventually they were rediscovered in 1994. So it took from the 1860s all the way to 1994. They were rediscovered kind of by accident. It's just so silly. They do jump a lot. They were rediscovered kind of by accident. And it turns out they weren't from that original island that they were listed under. It was just a mistaken identity of where they were back then, which again, forgive them. It was a long time ago. It's hard to keep any records back then, let alone where you are and what island's what and all the things when you're discovering things. And so they were rediscovered in 1994. And it turns out they're actually a vulnerable species. So when it comes to being an endangered species, they're actually vulnerable. That's a category of being endangered. So they're not doing the best, but they're not doing the worst either. But they're already from a tiny area in the world. So having all that pressure on them of literally only existing in one place is a lot of pressure for any species, including any island species, of course. So that's already working against them. So they are considered to be vulnerable. One reason is habitat loss, like most island areas and jungle type areas, which they live in forested and jungle type areas. Typically they are suffering habitat loss because of human influence and things like that. We're building homes, we're building buildings, we are chopping trees down left and right sometimes, and harvesting things that the animals need, and that takes away their home. And that's across the board for all animals. Animals all over the world suffer habitat loss, right? Because we're moving in and they don't have anywhere to go. So when you're already on a tiny little island and you have nowhere else to go and someone takes away your home, where else are you going to go, right? So that's working against them. Habitat loss, and also invasive species. You guys know how much I love talking about invasive species, but invasive species do affect a lot of animals across the world. So again, they're on an island, nowhere for them to go. If something happens, they can't just like swim across the ocean. They're not that good at swimming. They could probably skitter across some water quickly if they needed to swim and survive. But they're not swimmers. They're not a swimming animal. They're a climbing animal, as you can see. She's good at climbing, and she's good at jumping from here to there in small bursts, but they're not good swimmers, and they certainly aren't going to swim in the ocean, so they have nowhere else to go. So another, like I said, something that affects them is going to be invasive species. What is invasive species? That means species of animals that shouldn't be there where they are. They have been brought over by humans, typically, or by human influence, and have either taken over or caused some kind of bad effect on local species, like the crested gecko, for example. So crested geckos live over there in an island called New Caledonia, right next door to Australia, which is also a great big island, right? So I'm not sure where this type of ant came from, but there is an invasive species of very destructive ant that humans have brought over by accident, not on purpose, but probably stowed away on a boat or something like that, or a plane. And now those ants are thriving in New Caledonia. And not only can they eat what the crested gecko eats, which is like things like insects, and they also eat fruit, and they also eat nectar and things like that. They're actually an omnivorous gecko, which is pretty rare in the animal kingdom, actually. Most geckos are insectivores or carnivores. Where are you going, Roo? You're gonna go on to the other hand? I'll just lift up that hand. Whoop! There she is. But those ants that have been brought over there as an invasive species, they are an invasive species, they have wreaked havoc on that environment. They have eaten a lot of things. I believe they're a type of fire ant, but I can't remember. Nothing much can eat them, and they are eating bugs, they are eating fruit, I think, and all kinds of things, and it eats what the crested gecko eats. So, and they also are so severe of an ant that they can even eat young crested geckos. So they're eating the geckos and they're eating what they eat. So not great. So that is affecting their numbers out there in the wild. That's what's causing them to be listed as vulnerable. So vulnerable is kind of in the middle of what we call least concern, which is doing fine, all the way to extinct in the wild. So that's going to be right smack dab in the middle, is going to be where this animal actually is when being an endangered species, or with being an endangered species. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm having a hard time talking today, you guys. I think I'm flustered because of our technical difficulties. Cry. But anyway, so these guys aren't doing the best. They're not doing the worst either, but they do need help in the wild. Luckily, they do very well in the care of humans. They've actually, since being rediscovered in 1994, they have become an extremely, extremely popular reptile pet. And they're very easy to keep in the care of humans. They don't need a ton of heat. They don't need a ton of anything. They're very, very small. They're easy to keep happy and healthy in a relatively medium-sized to small enclosure pretty much all of their life. They're also very, very hardy when kept in good conditions. They're easy to feed. They like bugs, and they really like a formulated diet, which mimics nectar and fruit. That helps them to stay nice and healthy as well. And they're just generally a very easy reptile to keep. Now, they're not always as handleable as Roo is. I have a few crested geckos here once in a while, and Roo by far is the calmest crested gecko. She's the easiest to handle. And I don't know why that is. I've raised them all the same. Some of my crested geckos are rescues as well. They come into our life for different reasons. And a lot of people get them and then don't realize they live to be 15 to 20 years old. And they don't want to make that commitment for the rest of the gecko's life. So a lot of people get them as babies, or they impulse buy an animal like this, and then, oh my gosh, they're going to live for 20 years. It's a long time. So they change their mind, and they oftentimes will find homes for them. And we're more than happy to help out with that kind of thing. And so is Sinitra over at Springing Scales, by the way. If you happen to be in the San Antonio area, she will help you out with rehoming some reptiles too. So we are here for you when it comes to reptiles. Mom says, oh no, about the ants and the invasive species and all of that. Yep. Oh, look at her. She's so cute. And so cute. Yes, I agree. She is so cute. Now, this is a typical type of gecko. And I say typical type of gecko because there are other types of geckos that don't have these features that I'm about to tell you about. This is a climbing animal. Most geckos can climb very well. This type of gecko does have sticky toe pads, which are actually sticky because they have little lines that kind of crinkle together to work together to climb. So it's almost like little grippers on their toes, right? It's not like a suction cup like a frog has. Some frogs have suction cup type mechanisms on their toes, and it literally suction cups to the sides of leaves and things. These guys almost have like little ridges or lines on their toes, and those ridges and lines will kind of work together like this, and they'll kind of squeeze together to be able to stick right to flat surfaces. Now, what they use that for in the wild, of course, is climbing up trees and smooth leaves and things like that. But she can also climb right up my hand with ease and hang on just fine. Most geckos can climb up flat surfaces and things like that. And most geckos are arboreal or semi-arboreal, which means they climb trees and live in trees. That's what this gecko does too. Geckos as well typically don't have any eyelids. So crested geckos don't have eyelids, just like the snake. So just like the snake, they can't blink, and they have a clear scale on top of their eye called a spectacle scale. And this will help them to protect their eye and also see straight through it like a goggle. So they don't really need eyelids at all. But in order to wipe their eyes clean, they will actually lick their eyeballs with their tongue. Now, when it comes to being a snake, snakes don't really see very well, like I think I mentioned, but snakes still need to see a little bit. But if a snake gets some debris or dirt on their eyeball, it's not really a big deal for a snake because they're not a very visual animal. They're more smell-based, but geckos have excellent eyesight. And this type of gecko is nocturnal. So their eyelids are actually, their eye pupils, not their eyelids. They don't have any eyelids, Amanda. Their eye pupils are slitted. Typically, a nocturnal animal is going to have slitted pupils, and that helps them to widen even more than a rounded pupil if they need it to. Right now, it's super bright in here, so she doesn't really need to widen her pupils to see. In fact, it's probably pretty bright in here for her. She's like, got them super shut. But like a cat's eye, they have slitted pupils too. Pretty cool, because cats are nocturnal as well. And they will widen a lot bigger than a rounded pupil like a human has. So they have amazing night vision. They see really, really, really well. In fact, vision is probably their best sense. So in order to clean their eye, if they happen to get some dirt or debris or moss on their eye, they just use the tongue. The tongue will come straight out of their mouth and lick their eye spectacle nice and clean, just like a little windshield wiper, and then she can see again, no problem. But they don't have to blink. When they do go to sleep, which is during the daytime, because they're nocturnal, they will go to sleep and kind of squint their eyes. I've seen them kind of squinting, but they can't shut their eyes fully. And that is typical, again, of geckos. Geckos in general don't have eyelids. Yeah, they don't. She's like, what? They don't have eyelids, and they're arboreal or semi-arboreal. Now, there are a few exceptions, like leopard geckos, of course. You guys know what leopard geckos are. You've seen Felix, our leopard gecko, here on the program before, I'm sure. Felix and all leopard geckos have eyelids, just like we have. So they can blink, shut their eyes, go to sleep, all the things, no problem. They don't have that spectacle over their eye, that clear scale. Where are you going, Roo? You're so silly. She keeps wanting to jump away. I'm not going to let that happen, though. As you can see, they jump, but they don't jump too far. I'm able to just pick her right back up and show you again. She's so cute. And also the leopard gecko doesn't climb. They don't have sticky toe pads like she has. See your little sticky toe pads? Pretty awesome. You can see why they call them the crested gecko. They have that kind of hairy looking ridge. It's not hair, it's scales. Another name for the crested gecko is the eyelash gecko, because it looks like they have beautiful false eyelashes on, right? That's why we named her Roo. She's actually named after RuPaul, wearing false eyelashes. Isn't that neat? So we do have a Roo and a Paul here once in a while. Now, they do have a semi-prehensile tail. They do have a semi-prehensile tail. And not only do they have toe pads that can stick to things on their toes, of course, they even have a pad on the end of their tail. I don't know how well you can see that. They even have a pad on the end of their tail, on the very tippy tip of their tail. Oh my gosh, she's so cute right now. They have on the tippy tip of their tail, they have another kind of toe pad. That's really hard to see, and I don't want to harm her tail. But they can basically grip onto things. You can see her gripping onto my finger right now. But they have a little toe pad on their tail, too, that they can use to grip for extra grip. Now, the sad thing about crested geckos, well, other than them being vulnerable on the endangered species list, they're also unable to regrow their tail if they lose their tail, like most gecko species and a lot of lizard species. Bye, you leaving? They can actually lose their tail for defense. So if they get grabbed by a predator or something like that, by the tail. The predator goes chomp and grabs them by the tail. They can actually drop their tail. For a crested gecko, the whole tail comes off. It doesn't come off in segments like other lizards. So other lizards can actually lose their tail in different segments. They have like options all the way down their spine of the tail, and it can pop off in different sections. For this species, though, it only comes off right here at the base. So the whole tail will actually just come right off. And unfortunately for this species, they haven't adapted to regenerating the tail. So they don't have regenerating abilities at all. Isn't that weird? But they can lose their tail if they really have to. That is very rare in the lizard world for a lizard to lose their tail and not be able to regenerate the tail. So that is one unfortunate thing about crested geckos. A lot of crested geckos in the wild will not have a tail at all because they probably had to use that defense mechanism one time. Well, it can only be one time, right? Because they lose it once and that's it. So most of them in the wild don't have tails. So I've been told. I've never seen them in the wild, but that's what I've been told. People that study them and whatnot. They are being super cute. What do you guys think about Roo, our crested gecko, and Sinitra's friend and her baby, Zakara, that was here earlier? He was a blood python, so pretty and so big. It was hard to hold him for the live stream. He's not really that big, but to hold up on camera, he was very, very hard to do that. But I think Roo is so cute. They do have amazing hearing as well. Geckos, unlike most lizards, can actually vocalize. So they do use their voice to talk. In fact, that's where the word gecko comes from. There's one species of gecko that makes a sound that sounds like gecko, gecko, gecko. That's where the word gecko comes from. There's also a gecko species called a tokay gecko, and they make a sound that sounds like tokay, tokay, tokay. Crested geckos don't make a sound that sounds like crested gecko, but they do make kind of like a sound from time to time. It's not too super often. I rarely hear it, but it kind of sounds like a chirping frog. And they are kind of similar in that way as a species. Geckos are, as all species of geckos. They kind of use their voice to communicate and call mates and all kinds of things. I have heard tokay geckos actually use their voice for defense. What I mean by that is if you grab one, they might scream at you and try to surprise you into letting them go. And that is a good defense mechanism that a lot of animals share, right? A lot of animals will yipe and scream and make, squealing noises or sudden noises to scare their predators when they become lunch, potentially. And that can hopefully cause the predator to go, what happened? And let them go and surprise their predators, right? Who's chiming in now? Let me know if you're there. Let me know if there's any kiddos watching with your parents. Happy Veterans Day to those that have served and those families that are, of course, with veterans and have veterans in their life. All of my grandparents were veterans as well. Well, my grandfathers were veterans, and of course their wives count too. So I am definitely a proud veteran granddaughter for sure. So let me know out there if you have any veteran family members, and I would love to say hello and tell them Happy Veterans Day. So we're meeting Roo the Crested Gecko. Remember, we do have virtual animal encounters where you can actually select the animals of your choosing. Typically, we start at 1 hour, and you can pick about 8 animals to meet, and we do have about 70 different animal individuals to choose from, and not 70 species, but 70 individuals. And you can select which ones you would like to meet on the virtual encounter and meet them and hang out with me for your own private Zoom, which is really fun. Those are great for office visits, for classes, especially if you happen to be out of state or out of the city. We've done several of those. In fact, those are doing really well, and they're a lot of fun for classes. They're very educational, of course. And we can cater to any of your curriculums and everything. So please let me know if you're interested. And please let me know if you happen to be interested in an in-person animal encounter as well. You might be able to meet Roo or some of our other lizard friends. See how they climb? So they are quite a small animal. They're not a big lizard, right? A lot of lizards are big, but a lot of lizards are small, but they're still lizards. They're still reptiles. Geckos are just one type of lizard. There are many, many, many types of lizards, like dragons, bearded dragons, iguanas, monitor lizards, geckos, of course. There's so very many different types. Skinks are another one of my favorites. And all lizards have scales, like all reptiles. They have scales all over their body. Even this animal has scales, even though she's very soft. They're actually quite smooth to the touch, kind of like a snake, but a little bit different. They feel to me like a flower petal, very soft, very unique feeling for this species anyway. Look at her little throat going. So when you see their throat going like this, that is going to indicate that she is sniffing. That is something that I learned not too long ago. But they're kind of like breathing and sniffing the air, kind of like a dog sniffs. That's what she's doing. The tongue coming out is going to help her to kind of taste and figure out what's going on around her. And like I said before, they can even use their tongue to lick their own face to keep it clean. And they can even lick their own eyes. They are pretty good little jumpers, but in my opinion, crested geckos are a little bit clumsy when they jump. Just like that. They can't really jump very far. And they kind of just give it a try anyway. Super cute. What do y'all think? Look at that beautiful face. Again, this is a natural colored crested gecko. And crested geckos come in all different types of colors nowadays in the care of humans. Crested geckos breed and do very, very well. Where am I going? They do very, very well in the care of humans. They're very easy to keep happy and healthy in human care and whatnot. I was waiting for her to jump again. And they're fairly easy to breed. Crested geckos actually lay 2 eggs at once. That's all gecko species as well. They lay 2 eggs at a time, but they can lay 2 eggs at a time each month for around 9 to 10 months out of the year. So they do have quite a few babies per female, and their eggs are quite large for their size. Can look something to look up. Their eggs are pretty big for how small they are. So that's why they only lay 2 at a time. They're very, very prevalent breeders. And very easy to breed in the care of humans. So breeders have been able to develop all sorts of colors and markings of crested geckos. If you look it up, there's so much to see and learn. But this is a wild type or buckskin crested gecko. This is how they look in the wild, which makes a lot of sense to me because they're kind of natural colored. Crested geckos and other species of lizards all over the planet can change color. Not every species of lizard can change color, obviously. You guys probably know that. But some lizards can, and crested geckos can. They can be kind of lighter colored like this, or they can be very, very dark and blend into darker things. But usually they're going to change color to indicate their mood or help them to regulate their temperature like most lizards do. So if they feel a little bit too hot, they can turn light colored. And if they feel a little bit too cold, they can turn dark colored. And that's going to help them to warm up or reflect light. Although this is a nocturnal species, so they're not going to use that for that reason as much as other lizards, but they still might do that anyway, just because that's what all lizards do. But anyways, these guys are strictly nocturnal. They're only going to be out during the nighttime. They do go to bed all day long. But they do change color for sure. And that does help them inadvertently to blend into different backdrops. Although being brown in general as an animal is going to help you to blend into natural backdrops. Look at her beautiful face. She's so cute. I can see why these guys are super popular. Just always do your research before adopting any animal, including lizards like crested geckos. Even though they do happen to make a pretty decent pet, as far as reptiles go, they're fairly easy to take care of. That doesn't mean that they don't have their own special set of needs that they need to stay thriving and healthy. And that doesn't mean they're necessarily the right pet for everybody, right? And just because you want one doesn't mean that you should get one. So make sure and do all your research. Think about it for a long time. Make sure if you are a kiddo out there that you have some kind of research under your belt, like I said, and you have permission from your parents. You don't just want to buy a crested gecko from the store or anything like that without permission, because they are still about a 20-year commitment. A healthy crested gecko can live 15 to 20 years with proper care. And we do want to always offer them proper care, right? Because they deserve it. Now, here in our care, they do eat bugs, as well as nectar supplement, which is like a powder diet that you can make into a liquid by adding water. And you mix it together, and that will replicate a nectar and fruit, which they normally get in the wild with regular natural nectar and fruit. But it also has vitamins and minerals for them. These guys also need calcium as well for proper growth of their bones and to stay healthy. They need calcium and vitamin supplements as well. So it's something to research. If you guys ever need help with your pet care, please let me know. That's something that we do offer is pet care consulting here at Once in a While. Okay, Roo, you did a fantastic job. I think it's time to move on to our final animal. Remember, we already met the blood python named Zakara. And now we're meeting Roo, the crested gecko. And we do have one more reptile friend for you guys to hang out with for a little while longer. And then we'll say goodbye here in a little bit. So this is, like I said, Roo, the crested gecko. And it looks like she's done. So I'll be right back with our next animal. Alrighty, guys. It's been a little while since we've seen Shelton John, so I brought him onto the show as well, since we're talking about reptiles. Remember, reptiles are lizards, snakes, turtles and tortoises like him, and crocodilians like crocodiles, alligators, gharial, and caiman. This is a tortoise, of course. His name is Shelton John, and Shelton John is a red-footed tortoise. Now, you might be wondering what the difference is between a tortoise and a turtle. Number one, it's going to be where they hang out most of the time, and their swimming ability or not swimming ability. So a tortoise is too heavy to swim. They aren't buoyant or able to float. They aren't designed for swimming whatsoever. So they don't hang out in water. They hang out on dry land. So they are terrestrial. This type of tortoise is from Central and South America. There are a more tropical species of tortoise, but tortoises can live in very dry climates as well, like deserts and forests and things like that. And they don't necessarily need to swim, like I said, because they don't swim. They're too heavy and they're built for land, not water. They don't have swimming legs or flippers or fins. They just have elephantine legs, which reminds me of the word elephant, right? So elephantine, elephant-like. That's how his legs look, especially the back leg, like I'm showing you now. They look like elephant legs, and they're very, very similar in shape and ability to walk around. Elephants are also very heavy-bodied, so it makes sense, right? So land-dwelling, can't swim, and also their diet is oftentimes herbivore diet. So when I say oftentimes, most of the time, tortoises are strict herbivores. So that makes a lot of sense to me as well, because as we all know, tortoises are not fast. They are very slow moving animals on land. So they aren't really fast enough to catch animals to eat for their dinner. They're going to eat things like grass and leaves and plants and flowers and fruits and other vegetables. This species of tortoise eats a lot of fruit in the wild and also a lot of tropical plants, of course, and flowers and all kinds of tropical things. And they are very fond of a nice moist environment, moisturized, and they tend to like rainfall and mist and everything like that. So here, once in a while, we do soak our 2 red-footed tortoises quite often to make sure that they're getting all of the water they need, because in the natural environment in the rainforest, they would really, really benefit from that. They also are not a tortoise who needs a ton of heat. Our tortoises do live outside most of the year, but they're not a super hot weather tortoise because they do live in kind of a shady environment in the natural world, right? The jungle. They're not going to live in the hot desert sun or something like that. But they do also have to get natural light and sun, just like most reptiles do, in order to absorb their UV that they need. They have to have UVB to rays from the sun to be able to process their calcium and other vitamins and minerals to make sure they're nice and healthy. So they do need a lot of special things, being a diurnal species, not a nocturnal species like the gecko, right? They have a diurnal lifestyle, so they're going to be out during the day and sleep all night, kind of like humans. They're most of us, right? So that's another big difference between them and, of course, like the nocturnal gecko that we met earlier. So this is a diurnal species. Diurnal means active in the day and not in the night. He is so very cute. Red-footed tortoises are named for their red markings on their legs. Red-footed, of course. They have markings on their front legs and markings on their back legs. And they even have markings on their tail and their face, too. And he has extra red markings. He is such a pretty red-footed tortoise, in my opinion. They also have yellow markings on their shell, too, like little dots on their carapace. This is called the carapace. This is a top shell, basically. It's rounded like most tortoises. And it's called the carapace on top and the plastron on his belly. Plastron, carapace. Isn't that interesting? So they have all different really neat names for their different shell parts and body parts. And all of these individual pieces are called scutes. And scutes are all over the shell. The shell, of course, is part of their body. It's not something that he could take off or change. And if it gets injured, he is also injured. In fact, underneath the shell, directly underneath, is going to be his skeleton. So his ribs are here underneath the shell. His spine is underneath there as well. And it is part of his body, just like our back and our chest is part of our body. His chest is right here. And all his organs are underneath there as well. A fun fact about a tortoise and turtles, to my knowledge, is that their lungs are actually located on the top in their anatomy and not like down here where we would think that the lungs would be, like kind of in the front where we have them. The lungs aren't on the bottom, they're actually on the top. So for that reason, a tortoise turned upside down is a very serious situation because the lungs might be squished by the rest of his organs if he's upside down. So if you ever see a tortoise out there in your natural environment in the woods or along the side of the road that's flipped over on its back, please do me a favor and do the tortoise a favor by flipping them back over on the right side so that they can breathe easily, because eventually they can stop breathing, and of course then they won't survive. That is one way we can help tortoises in the natural environment. Fun fact, we can also help them across the road. There's nothing wrong with doing that as long as the road is safe for you to walk across, and maybe have a friend help you to stop traffic and things like that, and make sure you're not in a dangerous situation. Please don't do that. But if you see a tortoise in the road, that is a very dangerous situation for the tortoise, because as strong as their shell is, it is not adapted to defending against cars and against car strikes and things like that. So a tortoise that gets hit by a car, it's usually not good. In fact, that's one thing that really affects them nowadays in the natural environment. Not so natural is cars and being roadkill and things like that. Not great. So helping a tortoise across the road safely, if it's safe for you, you can do so. Just make sure not to touch their face, because a wild animal of any kind might defend itself. And what can a tortoise do? They can sometimes bite to defend themselves. Red-footed tortoises aren't known for biting. They're a very mellow species, very easygoing and not really defensive very much. I don't know why. They just are like that and wonderful. But other tortoise and turtle species especially can bite, and can bite very hard. Turtles have an easier time getting across the road most of the time because they're faster than tortoises. Even on land, they're pretty quick. But a tortoise is very slow. So you can definitely help them across. It is perfectly okay to do that as long as the road is safe for you, like I said. But what you want to do is always help them in the direction that they're already going, because a tortoise going one direction across the street has a reason that they're going that direction. And if you try to point them in another direction, say they're going this way, on the ground, not and you want to say, hey, Mr. Tortoise, this side actually looks better. Let's go this way. You know what they're going to do? Come right back around and walk that same direction they were going originally, because they probably have a reason. Maybe that's where they found food last time and they want to go back and find some more food. Maybe that's where their girlfriend or boyfriend lives and they want to get back over there. Maybe that's where they found water before. So they're going to go there for a reason. And tortoises are very stubborn animals. If they're going somewhere, they're going with a purpose. So the best thing you can do is get them across the road safely in the same direction that they're already going. And hopefully they'll just keep on going that way. So that's one way we can actually help out turtles and tortoises, is flipping them over if they're upside down. That does happen sometimes, and it can be really severe for a tortoise to be upside down, like I said, or helping them across the road, because any animal on the road is vulnerable to cars, and that is not something they're adapted to handling, even though their shell is very tough, like I said. Their shell is very tough, but it's still part of their body. If it gets injured, he gets injured too. He can't, like, grow it really fast, quickly healing and things like that. They do everything pretty slow, including walking. They walk slow. They also heal slowly. So if he were to be injured on the shell, that would be very, very serious. Tortoises can feel their shell being touched. Even though it's so tough, he can feel being scratched. They seem to really like being scratched. And they can certainly feel a heat change, cold, all of those things, because it's part of their body. They have nerve endings underneath the top layer, which is keratin. The top layer is keratin, just like your fingernails and your hair too. They don't have they have fingernails. They don't have hair, but they do have keratin all over their body. Almost so they didn't have fingernails. They have fingernails. They have toenails. There they are. They have toenails. Aren't they cute? They have toenails in the front. They have toenails in the back as well. Can you see them? There they are. They're super cute. Tortoises are really good at digging. Most tortoises are. This species doesn't dig a ton, but they do dig a little bit. In fact, that is actually how tortoises affect the environment more so than any other reason, is going to be through digging tunnels. So tortoises such as gopher tortoises and other smaller tortoises like that, and even larger tortoises too, like sulcata tortoises over in Africa. But gopher tortoises in Florida are a great example of this. I think they live in Georgia as well, but I know they live in Florida. And gopher tortoises dig tunnels. They're going to dig and dig and dig, and then tortoises live a long time. This particular tortoise, Shelton, he can live into his 60s if he's well taken care of, and hopefully he will be, right, the rest of his life with us, and hopefully he will live into his 60s, is what I'm trying to say. But the point is that tortoises are very long-lived in general. So a lot of times they'll create a tunnel to live in or hang out in, and then they'll move on to another tunnel system later and make another one, and move on to another tunnel system and make another one, and move on to another area, and so forth and so forth. And by doing that, they're actually providing a lot of homes to other animals. So by digging tunnels or burrows to live in and leaving, they give another animal a home. They give snakes a home. They give underground like moles and things a home. They can give all kinds of animals homes just by abandoning their homes and leaving it to another animal. Isn't that neat? So they do a lot of digging, and that helps the environment. Also, by digging, they can aerate the soil and make the soil healthy. And by eating lots of plants and then using the restroom, they're also fertilizing the soil too. So they're excellent for the environment. They're also a prey source for other animals, especially as young turtles and tortoises. Those animals oftentimes are eaten by other carnivores, right? So that's another reason for them being around. But everybody loves tortoises, right? They are so super cute. They have such a cute little face. Did you know that tortoises don't have any teeth and turtles don't have any teeth either? That's very interesting to me. They don't have teeth. They have a beak like a bird. Their beak is very, very, very strong, and they can bite down on very, very tough vegetation and vegetables to eat. And but they, as a tortoise, they don't usually mean you any harm or anything like that. They don't want to come and bite you or anything like that unless you're a vegetable, I guess. Maybe you're a carrot. But turtles that eat meat can snap and bite. So like I said, be careful if you're ever helping one in your environment outside. Shelton. Everybody's being extra quiet out there. Tortoises are also very quiet animals. The geckos do make noise. And the snake that I had earlier, Zakara, he might hiss, but he's not super noisy either. Reptiles in general are pretty quiet animals in comparison to other types of critters all over the world, like birds and mammals. We're very loud. Mammals are loud, usually. But tortoises are very quiet, but they can vocalize a little bit, and they do so usually for courtship purposes or mating time. They will make noises. Isn't that interesting? So they can actually produce noises sometimes, and each species of tortoise has different noises that they make and different reasons that they make noises. But they're not totally mute. They can make some sounds, but it's pretty rare that they do that. They're a very quiet animal. Now, just like Roo the Crested Gecko moving her throat, that tells you that Shelton is also sniffing the air by moving his throat. Very similar, right? He's sniffing. See the little throat moving? He's right in front of my, ooh, he's right in front of my eye. That looks cool. Look at that. But their throat moving around, that indicates that he's smelling the air, trying to figure out what's going on around him. Tortoises do have a pretty good sense of smell. Pretty good. And they do have pretty good vision as well, but their hearing isn't the best. They can hear, and we think they hear different frequencies than humans do, but they can hear. They definitely can. And they, like I said, they make noises, and they can hear you walking up and things like that. I know that my tortoises hear me because I can step right up, and they definitely hear me coming and opening their cage and things like that, and giving them food. They're anticipating getting food. Of course, they can smell as well. So they might be smelling me too, but we know that they hear. And they can feel, and they can taste. So all 5 senses. Pretty neat. They are wonderful animals. Now, for Shelton, a lot of people ask us how old he is. We don't know. Shelton was a rescue as well, just like Zakara, the blood python. He was a rescue, so we have no idea when he was born. With reptiles, it's really, really hard to tell anything about them as far as their age or anything like that if you don't know their birthday or hatch day, I guess, in this case. This is definitely an egg-laying animal as well. But if you don't know their birthday when they were hatched, we really don't know how old he is, because with improper care, not good care, he may have grown slower or faster than he was supposed to. So we really can only guess. No, we don't really know how old Shelton is. Yeah. So we are happy to give him a home, though, and he should be just fine with us for the rest of his life. Now, you will notice that Shelton also has some bumps. This is actually not normal for this species. Again, he is a rescue, so he came from a different situation before us. We don't know what he was fed or what happened to him. But normally a red-footed tortoise, the species, would have a smooth shell. Now, our best guess is that he was fed too much animal protein. A lot of times if you feed them too much, maybe like dog food, cat food, meat, and worms and all kinds of crickets and things, they will try to eat it because I'm sure it tastes good, but it's not good for them. And especially when they're growing as babies, they're always growing as a reptile because they never stop growing. Fun fact, no reptile ever stops growing their whole life. But as from baby to teenager to adult, finally, they grow a lot faster. So if you especially give them a lot of protein during those years, they can develop issues like what we call pyramiding. This is called pyramiding. We did not cause that here once in a while. We feed him a very healthy diet, but we guess that he was fed too much animal protein as a young tortoise. He's still pretty young, we think. We hope. We hope he's not too old and just stunted or anything like that. But that does happen sometimes with improper care and diet. So, but we're happy to give him a home now where he's not going to have too many more issues with that. And we're hoping that that won't get any worse. But all these bumps are caused by improper diet usually, or some kind of improper care. So, but we're happy to have him, and we're happy that we can give him a good home, right, Shelton? He is so very cute. Everybody's favorite tortoise, Shelton John, the tortoise. Shelton John does have a best friend named Frank Sinatra, the tortoise, and he is so very cute as well. Well, you guys have been very quiet today. I'm sorry for our technical difficulties. We did have an issue with YouTube today, but we will hopefully be able to upload the video later, maybe. And we hope that is resolved by next week. If you do want to join us again, we are going to be here, of course, again next Wednesday and every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And we usually do broadcast a live stream on Facebook and YouTube, right? And that is free of charge. But if you want to donate anything to our animals, we are happy to take any donations of any kind. Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal are your options for donation. And you can also go to onceinawild.com and visit that website, of course, and scroll all the way down to the bottom and click that button that says donate to our Amazon wish list, where you can donate specific items that we've chosen, like hay and all kinds of things for our tortoises and all kinds of items for our other animals. And you can donate those items and send them straight to us. And that's really, really helpful as well. Every little bit helps during these trying times, of course, and we very much appreciate it. Or you can also schedule your own animal encounter, whether it be in person here in San Antonio, Texas, and surrounding cities, or you can schedule a Zoom room animal encounter, which is a virtual animal encounter for classrooms and birthday parties and office visits and more. So please let us know if you're interested in any of that. Our number is down below. And of course, our website is another option to schedule all of that, onceinawild.com. It's really good to see each and every one of you watching, and I know it's been kind of a quiet afternoon. I hope you're having a great Veterans Day. Thanks to all of our veterans for serving, and we shall see you guys next time here at Once in a While. We are not ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing Once in a While together. We'll see everybody next week here at